I'm Henrik Jönsson, an independent commentator on current issues in Sweden and abroad. There is a war of words raging in Sweden. Many interpret this hostile crudeness as the end of political civility. But underneath the huffing and puffing resides a deeper crisis. The war of words is a proxy for a war of collapsing worldviews. If you appreciate my videos, I'd be deeply grateful for any support using one of the payment options on the left. Without your support, this Swedish libertarian channel would not be possible. Also, remember to hit the subscribe button down there if you've not already done so, and don't forget to click the bell icon so that, the YouTube gods be willing, you might just get a notification every time I publish a new video, which I do with razor-sharp precision every Saturday morning at 8 AM Central European Time. Today, I'm explaining the War of the Worlds, the eschatology of Sweden. Stay tuned. In 1992, American political scientist and author Francis Fukuyama wrote a defining essay called The End of History. In his essay, Fukuyama argued that humanity, with the ascendancy of Western-style social liberal democracy, had reached the final form of human government. The linear progression of Hegelian thesis, antitheses, and synthesis had reached its ultimate destination. It's common to assume one's own short era on this beautiful blue marble floating through the infinity of the cosmos to be the end of days, be it Armageddon or the Rapture. It hints at an unbecoming narcissistic characteristic of the self-absorbed contemporary individual who so far always has been wrong. To quote Jeff Goldblum's character, Dr. Ian Malcolm from the 1993 blockbuster Jurassic Park. If there is one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories and crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is.
Life finds a way.
The notion of pain and danger is an apt description of what an individual or culture experiences when the expected rapture, climax, or Armageddon does not materialize. From Hippolytus' predictions of the second coming of the Christ in the year 500 AD via Jehovah's Witnesses' first claim of the end of days in 1975, to the millennial digital collapse of Y2K, the reality that the world just moves on is met with fear and bewilderment by those who hold the belief that the final destination ought to have been reached by now. Those of us who came into maturity during the Fukuyaman era of social liberalism, beginning with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and ending with the European migration crisis of 2015, has gone through the rise and fall of yet another worldview, presuming to represent the end of history. The reactions of the now bewildered end of history supporters are not pretty, and in order to make sense of their collapsing models of the world, a corresponding new model of politics gained popularity around 2016, the Gal-Tan axis. The Gal-Tan axis stands for green, alternative and liberal, and traditional, authoritarian and nationalistic, respectively. The model has primarily been used to defend the failure of social liberalism by adding a moral complement to the traditional left-right political spectrum. In many ways, Gal and Tan might as well be substituted with good and evil.
I'm necessary evil.
Those subscribing to the Fukuyaman end of history worldview all cluster themselves towards the top of the good GAN axis and placed everything that was destroying their utopian worldview towards the bottom of the evil tan line. The SOM-institute of Gothenburg, an analysis institute focused on society, opinion and media, recently published a number of interesting but predictable trends concerning the development of Gal-Tan and its axis. As Gal-Tan holds little tangible information aside from the subjective morality needed to explain the collapse of the established social liberal worldview, the axis itself is now collapsing back into a single left-right dimension. and it is dragging associated political parties with it, turning the former right GAL parties increasingly left-wing as it does so, while at the same time making some left-wing TAN voters slide to the right. In Sweden, this process is concretely exemplified by how the centre-right parties, the Centre Party and the Liberal Party recently decided to support the formation of a left-wing government, while the traditionally left-leaning Social Democrats are bleeding voters to the far-right Conservatives. European politics in general, and Swedish politics in particular, are now describing a semantic shift of the word liberal. In Europe, traditionally associated with right-wing free market values, into the same meaning it's held for a long time in the US, a word describing those championing big government and social engineering.
Why can't we all just get along?
To cope with this transformation, both sides of the left-right spectrum are increasingly locked into a polarizing war of words, and those most attached to the collapsed worldview are confusing the situation with the end of civilization itself. As the idealized social liberal worldview deteriorates quicker and quicker, this, paired with the inability to adapt to the new circumstances and the incapacity to formulate a new, constructive political and existential model, makes the world seem increasingly incomprehensible and hostile. This results in an increasingly violent defense reaction where every new or unknown phenomenon is regarded as evil and aggressive, and anyone who disagrees with this is deemed reprehensible and immoral. Because of this, Sweden's political rhetoric is increasingly adopting the properties of holy war, with headlines like "The front held" and "Democracy is under siege" becoming commonplace and accepted as appropriate descriptions of the final battle between good and evil.
Det är klart det finns en idé med Lafferkurvan som de allra mest högerextrema republikanerna ibland brukar hänvisa till.
This is the eschatology of Sweden. Eschatology means the study of the final events of history, or the ultimate destiny of humanity. This concept is commonly referred to as the end of the world or the end times. Modern eschatology and apocalypticism, both religious and secular, involve the violent disruption or destruction of the world. This belief is currently being played out for open curtains in Sweden, and it manifests in two observable forms. Firstly, as a regressive fear of the 1930s and the events leading up to World War II, and secondly, in the form of the acute fear of climate change. The collapse of the Swedish ambition to be a humanitarian superpower whose arms the huddled masses yearning to breathe free would be embraced by required the externalization of an enemy and the creation of a scapegoat in order to repress the experience of failure. The chosen enemy needed to represent both evil, chaos, and anti-humanitarianism, and at the same time, it needed to be impersonal, abstract, and capable of serving as a canvas onto which fear and blame could be projected. This is what the modern rhetorical construct of the 1930s means in Sweden. Critique of state media is said to waft of the 30s. Sweden today is said to be similar to Germany in the 30s. Political opponents are declared to be reeking of the 30s. Opponents' expressions are on march from the 30s. Opposition parties' roots are traced back to the 30s. Sweden is beginning to express terrifying likeness to the 30s. People are urged not to forget what happened in the 30s. Our time is claimed to be a mirror image of the 30s. The new right is an echo of the 30s. Contemporary language is reminiscent of the 30s. Echoes are getting stronger from the 30s. Contemporary parallels are detected with the 30s. We do not want to return to the 30s. The pay gap is like the 30s.
Det är precis så det gick till på 30-talet, så har det gått till i övriga Europa.
This rhetoric serves both as a weapon and a shield in the defense of the collapsing Fukuyama worldview, but it does not satisfy the messianic moral ambition it holds. This is why the attention of its adherents largely has shifted from the now defunct question of migration to the question of the climate crisis. The eschatological ambition has shifted from saving the people of Earth to saving Earth. itself. This new ambition is largely metaphysical and has freed itself from the tangible limitations of the physical world. By shifting the moral ambitions into an abstract realm, the threat of concrete criticism has been mitigated by demanding faith and by dismissing its opponents as deniers. At the same time, climate activism also serves as a canvas onto which existential needs of salvation and redemption can be projected. Taken at a grander scale, contemporary Sweden can be said to represent the existential crisis of the modern Western civilization. It's not primarily a question of politics, but a story of hope, despair, and a quest for enduring meaning and stability. Matthew 7:25-27 says, "And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." To those now reeling from bewilderment of having their ideological sandcastles washed away instead of being the end of history, trust not in ideology, trust in action. Trust not in the collective, trust in individuals, trust not in government, trust in the human spirit. And to the left-wingers and the right-wingers and the climate apostles and the climate deniers, and even to those postulating the end of history, I wish to conclude by quoting Dr. Manhattan from Alan Moore's 1989 masterpiece, Watchmen. "Nothing ends. Nothing ever ends." Do you think that individual responsibility and existential meaning are more important than defending deteriorating political worldviews? Please share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Do you disagree with me, have questions or similar experiences? Please share your input in the comment section down below. I appreciate all respectful feedback. My name is Henrik Jönsson, and I believe in individuals over ideologies, in practice before doctrine, and in reality rather than models. Thank you very much for watching this video.